The evolution of Russia's relationship with NATO. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, was established on April 4, 1949, to provide collective security against the Soviet Union and its influence in Europe. The Soviet Union viewed NATO as an aggressive military alliance, and tensions between the two sides were extremely high during the Cold War. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia emerged as a weaker but still significant power in the region. However, the relationship between Russia and NATO began to evolve as the organization expanded and changed its mandate. In the early 1990s, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was optimism in the West that Russia could be integrated into the European security framework. In 1994, Russia and NATO signed the Partnership for Peace Agreement, which was designed to promote cooperation and trust between the two sides. However, the optimism was short-lived, and tensions began to rise again. In 1999, NATO began its military intervention in the Kosovo conflict, which was in opposition to Russia's interests. Russia saw this intervention as a violation of international law, and relations between Moscow and NATO began to fray. This intervention was followed by NATO's eastward expansion, which meant that former Soviet republics and Warsaw Pact countries were joining the organization. This expansion was particularly concerning for Russia, as it saw NATO as encroaching on its sphere of influence. The relationship between Russia and NATO was further strained in 2008, following the Russian military intervention in Georgia. Georgia was not a NATO member, but many in the West saw this as a sign of Russia's aggressive behavior and its willingness to use force to achieve its objectives. The following year, NATO reaffirmed its commitment to Georgia and Ukraine's eventual membership in the organization, which Russia perceived as yet another attempt to encircle it. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine, which led to a significant escalation in tensions between Moscow and NATO. Following this annexation, the West imposed sanctions on Russia, and the organization suspended all practical cooperation with Moscow. However, NATO also decided to provide increased support to its eastern members, which included sending more troops to the region. This led to Russia accusing NATO of aggression and raising its own defense capabilities. Despite these tensions, there have been moments of cooperation between Russia and NATO. For example, in 2011, the two sides cooperated in Libya, where NATO conducted a military intervention in support of the Libyan rebels. Russia did not veto this action in the UN Security Council, and it even provided some support to the NATO operation. In Afghanistan, Russia has also provided logistical support to the NATO-led forces. Recently, there have been some signs of a possible shift in the relationship between Russia and NATO. In 2019, Russia re-entered the Council of Europe's Parliamentary Assembly, ending a 5-year boycott of the organization. This has been seen as a positive development by some in the West, who hope that this move could lead to increased dialogue and cooperation. However, there is still a long way to go before Russia and NATO can fully reconcile. In conclusion, the relationship between Russia and NATO has evolved significantly since the end of the Cold War. While there have been moments of cooperation, there have also been significant tensions and conflicts. Russia has perceived NATO's eastward expansion as a threat to its security interests, while the West has accused Russia of aggressive behavior and violating international law. Despite these challenges, it is important that both sides continue to engage with each other and seek avenues for dialogue and cooperation.